It was 2:37 a.m. when the notification lit up his phone. Another ride request. Marcus had been driving for 6 hours straight, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. But rent was due in 3 days, and his daughter needed new school supplies. He accepted without hesitation. The pickup address made him pause, a sprawling mansion on the outskirts of the city, where politicians and businessmen hid their secrets behind iron gates and surveillance cameras. The kind of place where normal people didn't belong. But money was money, and Marcus needed every dollar he could get. If this story already has you hooked, hit that subscribe button and like this video. We bring you the most unsettling, real Uber stories you'll ever hear. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. The gate was already open when he arrived, as if someone had been watching, waiting. The mansion loomed in the darkness, its windows like hollow eyes staring down at him. Marcus felt a chill crawl up his spine, but he pushed it away. He'd picked up hundreds of passengers from strange places before. This was just another ride, just another night. Then the front door opened, and a man emerged from the shadows. He wore an expensive suit, navy blue with subtle pinstripes, but something was wrong. The fabric near the collar looked darker, stained. His tie hung loose around his neck like a noose that hadn't quite finished its job. And his face, Marcus knew that face. Senator Richard Caldwell. The man who smiled from billboards across the city, who promised transparency and justice, who shook hands with community leaders and kissed babies at campaign rallies. But the man sliding into the back seat of Marcus's Honda Civic looked nothing like those posters. His eyes were hollow, ringed with dark circles that spoke of sleepless nights and terrible choices. His hands trembled as he closed the door, and Marcus caught the sharp smell of expensive whiskey, mixing with something else, fear, perhaps, or guilt. The destination appeared on the screen. The Grand View Hotel, downtown, 23 minutes away. Marcus pulled out of the driveway and onto the empty road. The only sound, the soft hum of the engine, and the occasional rustle of the senator's movement in the back seat. The silence was suffocating, pressing down on Marcus's chest like a physical weight. He glanced in the rearview mirror and saw Caldwell staring out the window, his reflection ghostly in the glass, lips moving soundlessly as if rehearsing words he could never say aloud. Then, without warning, the senator spoke. Not to Marcus, but to the darkness, to himself, to whatever ghosts haunted him in that moment. $47 million, he whispered, his voice cracking. That's how much we took from the education fund, children's futures, sold for lake houses and offshore accounts. Marcus's hands tightened on the steering wheel, his heart beginning to race. This couldn't be happening. This wasn't real. The construction contracts, Caldwell continued, his voice gaining a manic edge. We funneled them to Donovan's companies. The hospital expansion that never happened, the shelters that were never built, all of it. All of it was a lie. Marcus wanted to turn up the radio, to drown out the words, to pretend he heard nothing, but he was paralyzed, trapped in this moving confessional with a man unraveling before his eyes. The city lights blurred past them, red and gold and white, painting the car's interior in shifting shadows. Caldwell laughed suddenly, a sound without humor, empty and broken. They trusted me. They believed every word, and I destroyed them. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. I destroyed everything. That's when their eyes met in the rearview mirror, and Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. Recognition flashed across the senator's face, and something shifted in the air between them. The confession stopped. The broken man disappeared. What remained was something far more dangerous, a cornered animal calculating its survival. You know who I am, Caldwell said. And it wasn't a question. His voice had changed completely, cold and measured, the voice of a man who'd spent decades manipulating people, situations, outcomes. Marcus's mouth went dry. I'm just your driver, sir, he managed to say, hating how his voice shook. I don't know anything. but they both knew that was a lie. The senator leaned forward slowly, and Marcus could see him clearly now in the mirror, the desperation trying to hide behind a mask of authority. "You seem like a smart man," Caldwell said carefully. "Smart enough to know that some conversations never happened, some nights never existed. Smart enough to understand that memories can be expensive to maintain." The threat hung in the air between them, unspoken but crystal clear. Marcus's mind raced. Every instinct screamed at him to pull over, to end this ride, to run, but his hands stayed on the wheel, driving forward into the night. Because what choice did he have? The streets grew narrower as they approached downtown, the buildings closing in like walls of a trap. Every red light felt like an eternity. Marcus watched pedestrians stumble out of late-night bars, couples arguing on street corners, a homeless man pushing a shopping cart filled with his entire world. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that just feet away, someone was learning secrets that could topple governments and end careers. Or end him. The senator had gone quiet again, but Marcus could feel his eyes burning into the back of his head, watching, evaluating, deciding. What do you think you'd be feeling right now? That suffocating fear? The weight of knowing too much? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're still watching, make sure you're subscribed to Last Ride. We've got more stories that will keep you up at night, and you won't want to miss a single one. The Grandview Hotel emerged from the city lights like a monument to discretion, the kind of place where powerful people conducted business they couldn't conduct anywhere else. Marcus pulled up to the entrance, his hands slick with sweat on the steering wheel. This was it. The ride was over. He'd drop off the senator, collect his fare, and drive away. Forget everything, move on with his life. That's what he told himself. But as Senator Caldwell reached for the door handle, he paused. Slowly, deliberately, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a thick manila envelope. He placed it on the seat beside him, then looked up at Marcus one final time. "There's $20,000 in there," Caldwell said quietly. "Consider it a tip for excellent service. For your discretion, for understanding that sometimes the best thing a man can do is forget." He stepped out of the car, then leaned back in, his face inches from Marcus's. "But if you can't forget, if you decide to remember, you should know something else. I'm not the only one involved. There are people who make me look like a saint, people who don't leave envelopes in back seats. They leave bodies in rivers." The door closed with a soft click, and Senator Richard Caldwell walked into the hotel, disappearing through brass doors that gleamed like gold in the streetlights. Marcus sat frozen, staring at the envelope on his back seat. His phone showed the fare, $18.47. But on his back seat was $20,000 and a threat that felt like a noose tightening around his neck. His hands shook as he reached back and opened the envelope. Stacks of $100 bills, crisp and new, and tucked between them, a small white card with just 4 words written in elegant script: "Forget this night happened." Marcus stuffed the envelope under his seat and drove away, his mind spinning, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might burst through his chest. For 3 days, Marcus drove in a fog. He deposited the money in his account in small amounts, telling himself he'd earned it, that it was just a tip, that everyone takes money they shouldn't sometimes. He paid his rent. He bought his daughter new school supplies and took her out for ice cream. He tried to sleep, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw the senator's haunted face in his rearview mirror, heard that broken confession echoing in the darkness. Then, on the 4th day, he turned on the news while making his morning coffee. The headline made him drop his mug, coffee spreading across the floor like blood. Senator Richard Caldwell found dead in hotel room, apparent suicide. The news anchor's voice was somber, respectful, talking about a dedicated public servant who'd struggled with depression, who'd left behind a legacy of community service and reform. They showed clips of his speeches, his charity work, his tearful wife, thanking everyone for their support. Marcus stood frozen, watching them sanitize the truth, watching them bury the real story beneath layers of convenient lies. The official report said Caldwell had hanged himself with his tie. No note, no explanation. Just a tragic end to a troubled man's life. But Marcus knew better. He remembered the stain on the collar, the trembling hands, the desperate confession. And he knew, with absolute certainty, that Richard Caldwell hadn't killed himself. Someone had silenced him before he could talk again, before his guilt could drive him to confess publicly, before the whole rotten system could come crashing down. And now Marcus carried that knowledge like a stone in his chest, growing heavier every day. The envelope of money felt like blood money now, cursed, tainted with secrets that could get him killed. He thought about going to the police, to the media, to anyone who would listen. But then he'd remember the senator's final warning, the bodies in rivers. The people who made Caldwell look like a saint. So Marcus drives. Night after night, he accepts rides, picks up passengers, listens to their small talk and complaints and stories. He smiles, he nods, he collects his fares. But he's changed. He sees the world differently now, understands the shadows that exist behind the lights, the secrets that powerful people keep, the price ordinary people pay for knowing too much. Sometimes, late at night when the city is quiet and the streets are empty, he thinks about that envelope still hidden under his bed. $20,000, 47 million stolen from children, a man dead in a hotel room. And him, caught in the middle, forever wondering if he made the right choice. If there even was a right choice. If forgetting is the same as being complicit, or if remembering is the same as signing your own death warrant. Thank you so much for staying with us until the very end. Your attention means everything to Last Ride. But here's the truth. The best part of this story is what you think. What would you do with that envelope? Would you go to the police, knowing it might cost you everything? Would you keep the money and the secret? Would you try to investigate on your own? Drop your answer in the comments below. Subscribe to Last Ride if you want more disturbing, true stories from the back seats of Uber rides. Hit that like button to help this story reach more people. And whatever you do, don't miss the next video we've recommended for you, because some stories don't end when the ride is over. Sometimes they're just beginning.